His heart is missing. Not misplaced, not damaged. Missing. Gone. Ancient Egyptian embalmers preserved every internal organ of a royal mummy. Lungs, liver, stomach, intestines. And above all else, always, without exception, the heart. The heart was the seat of the soul. The thing you needed in the afterlife to be judged. Every pharaoh for 3,000 years had their heart preserved. Tutankhamun's heart is not there. He is the most famous pharaoh in history. His tomb has been studied for 100 years by some of the best Egyptologists alive, and nobody has been able to explain where his heart went. That's where this story starts. 100 years of study, 4 major scientific investigations, and the answer keeps changing. We know Tutankhamun became pharaoh around 1332 BC, aged approximately 8 or 9 years old. We know he died around 1323 BC, aged approximately 18 or 19. We know Howard Carter found his nearly intact tomb in 1922, and it became the most famous archaeological discovery in history. We know almost nothing about how he died. Not officially. The death isn't recorded. The cause isn't carved anywhere. For a civilization that documented everything, battles, floods, diplomatic marriages, temple dedications, the death of a sitting pharaoh is simply absent from the record. And in the 100 years since Carter opened that tomb, 4 separate major scientific investigations have come to 4 different conclusions. I'm going to tell you what all of them found, and then I'm going to tell you which parts of the story nobody talks about. Because those are the parts that actually matter. But first, you need to understand what Tutankhamun's body was actually dealing with. Because by the time he died, he was carrying something no royal mummy had shown us since. In 2010, a team led by Zahi Hawass conducted DNA analysis on Tutankhamun and a group of other royal mummies. The goal was to establish family relationships. What they found was deeply uncomfortable. His parents were full siblings. Not half-siblings, not cousins. Full biological siblings. Akhenaten, his father, the pharaoh from our previous video, and Tutankhamun's mother were brother and sister. 2 generations of royal inbreeding stacked on top of each other had compounded into a body that was failing before it had fully grown. 130 walking canes were found in his tomb. Not ceremonial objects, functional ones, worn down from actual use. He could not walk without them. And when the DNA analysis mapped what was actually inside that body, the picture became worse. Kolar disease 2, a degenerative bone condition in his left foot that would have caused severe pain with every step. Scoliosis, a cleft palate, a damaged immune system, and malaria, multiple strains running simultaneously. This was the most powerful man on Earth. Now, the murder theory. In 1968, a team from the University of Liverpool X-rayed Tutankhamun's skull and found a bone fragment floating loose in the cranial cavity. It looked to some researchers like the result of a blow to the back of the head. Books were written, documentaries were made, 2 suspects emerged, his vizier, Ai, and the general Horemheb, both of whom became pharaoh after Tutankhamun's death. It was a compelling story. It was everywhere for 30 years. In 2005, a team conducted the first full CT scan of the mummy. 1,700 images, every millimeter documented. The bone fragment? It had shifted in a pattern entirely consistent with the mummification process. Ancient embalmers moving the body while the resin was wet. Post-mortem displacement, not a murder blow. The murder theory collapsed in a CT scanner. But here's the problem. When the murder theory died, people stopped asking what actually happened. And the answer that replaced it is stranger, darker, and in some ways, worse. Because the same 2005 CT scan that killed the murder theory found something else. Something that nobody could explain. A different set of injuries. And a wound pattern that pointed to a completely different kind of death. The CT scan revealed a catastrophic fracture of the left leg. Severe, close to the knee, showing no signs of healing. He died within days of this fracture occurring. Possibly the same moment. In 2014, a virtual autopsy combined the CT data with biomechanical modeling. The lead researcher, Dr. Robert Connolly, found the full picture. Tutankhamun didn't just have a broken leg. He had a shattered chest, multiple fractured ribs, a fractured pelvis, damage to his internal organs consistent with a massive crushing injury to the lower left side of his body. The proposed mechanism? He was struck by a chariot wheel while he was on the ground or on his knees. Either thrown from his own chariot, possible for someone who could barely walk and had no physical strength to hold on, or run over during a hunting accident. A healthy 19-year-old with those injuries would probably survive. Not comfortably, but survive. Tutankhamun was not a healthy 19-year-old. He was a young man with malaria, bone disease, a compromised immune system, and a body that was already spending most of its resources managing chronic pain. The trauma overwhelmed a system that had nothing left to give. That's all four. 4 teams, 4 different answers, and none of them explain the heart. And now we come back to the heart, because this is where the story stops being forensic and starts being something else entirely. A catastrophic crushing injury to the chest, the kind the 2014 virtual autopsy describes, would destroy the heart, tear it, rupture it, leave something unrecognizable that the embalmer, under pressure to mummify a dead pharaoh quickly, might judge impossible to preserve. That's one explanation for the missing heart. Here is the other. Tutankhamun died suddenly. He was 19. His tomb, the smallest royal tomb in the Valley of the Kings, was almost certainly not built for him. It was likely being prepared for someone else, probably I, who stepped into the larger tomb he'd planned for himself and gave the cramped, unfinished space to the dead boy king. The mummification was rushed. The canopic jars that held his organs were sealed in a hurry. Later analysis found that they contained material that shouldn't have been put together, suggesting the embalmers were working fast, possibly cutting corners under political pressure. Who was applying that pressure? I, who became pharaoh the moment Tutankhamun died. Horemheb, who became pharaoh after I, and who then systematically removed Tutankhamun's name from every king's list in Egypt, absorbing his years of reign into earlier pharaohs, erasing the association with Akhenaten's discredited revolution. Tutankhamun was supposed to be forgotten. His tomb was sealed under workers' huts, his name struck from the record, his reign quietly consumed by the men who came after him. It worked for 3,245 years. And this is the part that changes how you see the whole story. Because Tutankhamun wasn't just a boy who died young. He was a threat, and the men around him knew it. This is what nobody talks about. Not the fracture, not the malaria. This. Think about what Tutankhamun represented. He was Akhenaten's son, the living connection to a revolution that the priesthood of Aman had spent years trying to erase. As long as he was alive and reigning, the possibility remained, however remote, that the Amarna period could be legitimized, its memory preserved, its reforms partially continued. His death closed that door. I took the throne and the larger tomb. Horemheb took the throne after I and erased the name. The Amarna period was written out of history. Akhenaten's years redistributed. Tutankhamun's existence officially, never happened. He was a problem that solved itself, conveniently. We don't know if anyone helped it along. The CT scan says no blow to the head. The forensic evidence says a chariot accident is the most probable cause. But the missing heart, the rushed mummification, the immediate political benefit to the two men closest to him. We cannot prove murder. We also cannot fully rule it out. Here is what we can say. Tutankhamun was a physically broken child, placed on the most powerful throne in the world. He spent his brief reign trying to undo his father's damage, reopening temples, restoring gods, attempting to stabilize a civilization that Akhenaten had fractured. He did this whilst managing bone disease and malaria, and a body that could not walk without canes. He was 9 when he started. He was dead before he was 20. And the men around him, Horemheb, the priests, the generals, immediately erased him so thoroughly that Howard Carter almost missed his tomb entirely. It was buried under the rubble of a later construction project, invisible from the surface. If Carter's team had started their survey 10 meters to the left, they would have missed it. The most famous pharaoh in history was nearly forgotten completely. His heart is still missing. His killers, if he had any, died as pharaohs. Their names carved on temple walls, their reigns celebrated as legitimate. And his gold death mask is the most reproduced image from the ancient world. He was supposed to be nothing. He became everything. Here's the question I can't shake. The heart. Do you think it was the injury? Or do you think someone made a decision? Drop it below. I read every comment. Next, the city Akhenaten built from nothing, for 50,000 people in 5 years. The oath he swore he would never abandon it, and the skeletons his workers left behind that completely destroy the myth of what the actual city was.